everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here today, and thanks for joining the session. I know there's lots of competing things going on, so it's great to have you here with me in this one. Sometimes talking about data can be considered a bit dull, so I'm making this as exciting as I possibly can. I have references to climate change and the universe, so, you know, that's some big topics, right? Smart Focus, we're a cloud marketing company with a big focus on data. We have a ton of machine learning algorithms, and we have a ton of very, very smart people who run them and create them. They're so smart, in fact, that they said to me a long time ago, Jess, you know that Trump's going to win this election? And I was like, no, really? They're like, yeah, we've run the numbers, we've crunched the data, and Trump's definitely going to win. So everyone at Smart Focus perhaps was not shocked this morning, maybe some other emotions, but not shocked. So that's the kind of stuff we do. We take huge amounts of big data, and we are able to find the trends and the stories in that data, and then use that in marketing automation campaigns that can change the way you talk to your customers. So I'm the Chief Marketing Officer there. If you haven't heard of Smart Focus, that's my fault. So hopefully, by the end of this session, you'll know who we are and what we do, and potentially how we might be able to help what you do. So I promised you some space and some universe. I learned this year. When galaxies, so we imagine galaxies out there in the universe, they're actually moving all the time. And when they come within close proximity of each other, the forces of gravity start competing, and they literally start ripping matter out of each other's galaxies and turning into something completely different. And this absolutely blew my mind, and this is actually a genuine picture from one, I don't think it's Hubble, I think it's another telescope, of two galaxies going through this process where they are ripping matter from each other and trying to grab different pieces for their own different systems. And this is the way I think. I was like, well, that's a bit like marketing, isn't it? In whatever industry you're in, you're probably trying to grab your customer's attention from your competitor. You are competing for that piece of energy and that slice of attention. And hopefully you end up with it in your ecosystem rather than theirs. So this is the theme that I will run through the whole of this presentation. So think space, everyone. So you might have seen this stat before. 90% of the world's data was created in the last 2 years. This stat was first put out there in 2013, but it's actually still true today, because cumulatively, the amount of data that's being created on this current trajectory we're on, 90% of the world's data was still created in the last 2 years. And that absolutely blows my mind, because that means that actually, that's 2.5 quintillion bytes of data being created every single day. That's what a quintillion looks like, by the way. Kind of a bit like a Google. It's very big. If you're thinking, well, that doesn't mean much to me, if we convert that amount of bytes into words on a page, so convert it into an A4 page or the size of a book page, it would be every day the equivalent of 419,000 New York libraries worth of books being created every day. Every single day. And that's the kind of, so when we're talking about big data, we're talking about it in our organizations, but we're also talking about it as a global concept of what's happening in the world. So if we break that down, the first kind of data we're talking about is interaction data. So I want to get a grasp of who's in the room. Have we got any retailers in the room? Cool, welcome. Any charities, not-for-profits? Couple, hello, welcome. Hi. Any insurance? Lots of you, hi. Shout out what I've missed. Legal. Health. Welcome. Leisure, great. Cool. Astronauts. Really?
No, you missed one out.
Oh, I got excited then. I was going to just start talking about space with you. So interactions, so across all those different kinds of verticals, we're talking about different kinds of interactions. So it might be, if in the non-for-profits, it would be, have I registered a donation or registered for a crowdfunding? I know we've got Just Giving somewhere in the house. Insurance, you know, when's my policy? When have I converted? When's my renewal date? All of those kind of interactions are what make up the bulk of this 2.5 quintillion pieces of data that I'm talking about. The next largest piece is images. Which obviously could be from news outlets, obviously massive growth in social media and us using images through social media, and to that same end, videos. But I was thinking about the images and videos part, and I was thinking really the majority of that is cat pictures, right? So I'm probably not going to focus a lot on cat pictures in this session, so you can leave now if you're disappointed by that. We did a session recently where we talked to people about these kind of different types of data, talked to businesses, and 68% of the businesses that we talked to said they have a problem with this kind of thing. They have the interactions, they have this wealth of data, but they don't really know what to do with it, and they don't know how to affect business change with it. So big data becomes just a big headache. So I want to drill down into this first data type that we might have, and I've pulled together some interactions that we sort of deal with daily. So it might be marketing interactions, it could be average spend, gifting's a big topic for a lot of the brands we work with. We take in a lot of in-store purchases because a lot of people are struggling to equate what happens offline and online. Online purchases there as well. Customer service data, a really big part. So, customer service scripts, is that something that you're able to store right now? When you store them, are you able to get insights out of it? And that's machine learning and natural language processing that is able to assist with that. Lifestyle and stage is a big thing for most of the companies we work with, and this isn't the old kind of like Mosaic. Sorry if anyone from those businesses that use Mosaic are in the room, but that stuff's crap and is out of date, because the minute you get those customer profiles, because they are static, they are not useful in marketing communications. So we find that real-time contextual demographics are much, much more, essentially you are what you buy or you are what you do rather than you are your postcode. So that's the different way of thinking about lifestyle and stage. So, and you can see here on the slide that some of these are really quite clear and obvious, and people have easy access to these transactional interactions, or they're actually fuzzy and in the distance. So to give you another space analogy, to get to smart insights, this is what Jupiter looked like to us when we were in 1879. That date doesn't look right. I think that must be 1979, because we weren't taking photos of Jupiter in 1879. Can someone from Smart Focus fact check that, please? Do you think? What, the first photo of Jupiter? Thank you. I forgive you Googling during my talk to fact check my picture. But in 2014, this is definitely true. And in fact, I have a friend who's an amateur space enthusiast, and he's able to take pictures like this from his home telescope today to see. You can actually track the movement. That's a big storm at the top of Jupiter there, and you can sort of see it moving over days. We're actually one of the only planets in the solar system that has a really different weather system. A lot of the other planets, the weather just kind of stays put on the planet. This is completely unrelated to big data. This is just a fact that I'm really interested in. So that storm's been there for like millions of years. Anyway, so big data. Where we are at now, with the speed in which we can process, yes?
It's correct.
1879? Go me. Wow. That must have been one of the first pictures ever taken. All right. Thanks, everyone. That's cool. Right, where was I? Yes, so big data. We're now able to see much more clearly about these customer insights, and we can get to them quicker. So we don't have to wait several weeks to understand what our customers are doing. We can find out in real time in very clear, crisp precision what they're doing. However, as I'm sure has been discussed already today, that's not always enough. Again, we have customers saying, I have a wealth of data, I just can't do anything with it. I've got all the data in different silos, and those silos might be best in class, but I can't get that data out and do anything with it. So our very clever people at Smart Focus came up with this analogy for me. Sometimes we are talking about puzzles, and sometimes we are talking about mysteries. And as per the picture here, a puzzle is something that can be solved. It is a selection of pieces that once you put them together, you see the whole picture. And I've got some example of puzzle questions that we have now. If you can't answer your puzzle questions, then you're at sort of stage 0 and you need to go up in your maturity curve. Mysteries are the locked box that you don't actually know if there is an answer to it. Mysteries is where the value is. Unpacking mysteries like, why is that trend happening, and why aren't our customers doing that? There might not be an answer to it, but if you find the answer and you can act on it immediately, then there is value. So as promised, here are some example puzzle questions. How many customers buy more than once in a year? Which products are underperforming? Which products are purchased together? Which campaign was the most successful? Who are our rockstar customers? If you can't answer those today, definitely come and talk to us, because we could probably get you those answers in like a week. That's the basic stuff. That's answering the puzzles. Let's make it more complicated and look at some mysteries. How can we increase the average order value? There might not be a way to, but if you look at the data, there probably is a trend which we would be able to pick out and find. How can we encourage more frequent purchasing? How can we increase gifting sales? This is a really difficult one for a lot of our customers. I don't know, I mean, insurance, perhaps you don't have a lot of gift of insurance. Well, that would be a very useful gift, actually, to give someone. I've just moved house. I'd love it if someone bought me some home insurance. But gifting is important for a lot of our customers. You know, how do I identify the gifter? And then how do I find when they are next likely to make that next purchase of a gift? What new kinds of campaigns should we run full stop? You know, which kinds of customers should we be going after? Are we actually buying customers that are not profitable for us? That's something that our customers ask us a lot. And how should we diversify inventory? What's the next thing that our product should do? The data you already have should be able to tell you that. So that's puzzles versus mysteries. Now, it's very difficult to give a customer example when I'm talking about big data, because none of my customers would like to stand up here and say, here's what our data strategy is, because it's very, very close to their hearts. And of course, you know, there's a security and privacy concern. So what I've had to do is I've anonymized a retail example of the kind of thing where we've used mysteries and added value to the business. So imagine a big retailer somewhere in the world had some of these problems. So this product's not profitable for us. What's going on? We were actually able to say, actually, it's almost always added to basket as an additional item, which raises average order value. So the output then, so the actionable part of the data is, you may also like this on a personalized email. So we've started with assumption, we've used the data to actually debunk that assumption and then give it a new output, which added value to the bottom line, the most important line. Will running a concession damage our main business and margins? So we work with a lot of sort of FMCG brands and a lot of general luxury brands as well, who might think, well, if I sell in Harrods, is that going to damage my own brand sales? Is that a sale? Is it robbing Peter to pay Paul? Is that a sale I could have got anyway? Through RFM segmentation, recency, frequency, monetary, we're able to do that on a very specific segment of people. In this case, it was a geolocation, a geo group people. And in those particular locations, we realized that they have an increased value above base. So they are over-indexing on lifetime value in comparison to the rest of the base by that geography. So actually, increase your coverage in concessions. You'll get more value out of it. And a third example, how can we increase win-back purchases that have a clear replenishment cycle? So a lot of the brands we work with, once you've used the thing, it runs out. This actually applies to insurance and some of the other guys that shouted out in the room here. When something ends, what does that shape look like of the marketing communication that follows? So what we were able to do with this brand is we looked at product A that had this replenishment cycle, and we could see a standard distribution from day one through to not repurchased, and then have an automated replenishment campaign for each of the individuals where they fitted within that bell curve. So it's not a, lump all these people together and send them the same thing. It's find out where each individual fits in that replenishment cycle to, I can't live without it, I bought it on day one, to, I still haven't renewed yet, I haven't bought that thing again. And every single person gets a different output. And again, all of these outputs have delivered significant revenue to bottom line. The other anonymized version, well, it's kind of half anonymized really, isn't it? If you know your cars, you know which brand I'm talking about. We are able to show this particular automotive brand the next best offer and action for them for the life cycle of a motor vehicle owner. And if you think about that, that's quite complicated. This is a luxury brand, and we are able to tell them when that person's going to upgrade from a two-seater to a four-seater because the family's on the way. And we use that using their own data, but also third-party census data and other different forms of third-party data. And so within a very close degree of accuracy, we'll be able to say, this is going to be the next model they're going to buy. And then this was a revelation for us, actually, looking at the data. This is the time when they're going to buy the second luxury car for the household. So perhaps the daughter's turned 18, and we're going to buy her a fancy car for her birthday, lucky her. So this is the kind of thing that we're able to model across retail, across automotive, and some of the verticals that you are talking about in the room. So I talked about interaction data type. I'm actually going to talk about the images as well, because at Smart Focus, we're obsessed with content and we're obsessed with data. And content is a scarce resource at the moment, and it's also something that worries our customers as much as data does. So when we talk to our customers, I often tell them that they're polar bears, and they look at me like I've gone mad. And what I mean by that is, when you think about a lot of the industries we've talked about, things are changing really, really fast. The pace of change now is faster than it ever has been in the history of the world. In fact, commentators say that in the next 7 years, we're going to experience a century's worth of change. Perhaps not now that Trump's in office, I don't know, but we were meant to see in the next, more so you reckon, different kind of change. So the pace of change is really fast. And so businesses that aren't adopting new things really quickly are at the risk of being left behind. Like the great polar bear, they might think they're majestic in their environment, absolutely king of that world, but in fact they're on an iceberg that is completely shrinking underneath them. Unless, of course, you're a climate change denier, in which case everything's fine. So when we're talking about content and how you use it and reuse it, we have a term that I particularly like called the content multiverse. I like it because I'm obviously obsessed with space and also because I made it up. So a lot of the brands we work with spend a lot of time and money thinking about how to curate their unique brand. They spend a lot of money with agencies and they look for images that really define what they're trying to sell and what they're trying to put forward as themselves as a brand. And yet all the time, their customers and their audience are creating content that can be used by them. So we call this the content multiverse, and the reason it's the multiverse is because it has more than one life. Content now is shared, reshared, retweeted, created by people outside of your organization. And those that are harnessing that content and using it in marketing programs are seeing really huge uplift. So this is what we're able to do. We're able to curate content that might be user-generated, content that might be third-party generated, or your own content, and put it into a system that can then be reused as marketing collateral. So we have here, it's mobile optimized from any different source. It can be editorial, blogs, and reviews. It can be native brand articles created from your own CMS, and it could also have CTAs added to it automatically, so calls to action, so that people can buy straight from this content. So the content multiverse is one sphere that you control, and you curate, and you then push out through any channel you want. And so an example we have here is, have you ever been to Paris recently? Been to Paris this year? Have you walked down the Champs-Élysées that used to all be handbag shops? It's now all luxury automotive. All of them are along there. Well, I say luxury, like Anne Renault. So this is at the Toyota store where we have a live screen that presents the output of Toyota's content multiverse. So this is content that is curated by the brand, but it could be created by the Toyota owner. And dwell time in this store alone doubled based on having this screen there, because it's eye-catching, it's representing, it's still Toyota's brand, it's still very clear that it's Toyota, but it's representing it in a different way, and it's a different view on a very well-known brand. But it didn't just have to be an output in a digital screen. This could be in an email, this could be on a website, this could be anywhere where there is a piece of glass and a digital channel to that. We call it coffee cup curation because in the time that it takes you to drink your coffee, you have selected this content from your content multiverse. So you can see here, there's some blue ticks here. That's literally just this brand choosing which content looks good for it today. And then you can publish it through any channel of your choice. So I've got an example here of travel, and we had some leisure in the room. So this is a travel and leisure brand we work with, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
We're still doing it.
For over 20 years now.
We still do it.
We've even done it with neighbours.
We still do it.
In fact, we're going to do it right now.
With teletext holidays.
Like millions of others, these people have been going away with teletext holidays for years, and they're still doing it. We've got thousands of great value holidays from £199 per person. Come on, visit teletextholidays.co.uk today at All Protected.
What did you think they were talking about? Holidays. So Teletext Holidays is a great brand of ours. I think, as that advert showed, they're sort of trying to say we're not stuck in the past, we're not that thing that you remember off the telly and having to sort of punch the numbers into your analog TV remote control. We're something different, and they're massive now, and they do still shift a lot of holidays. It's actually obviously the main business now. So they had a campaign called My Holiday Habits, and they wanted to get this view of like they're the sort of holiday provider of the people. So they wanted to see what people were like when they were going on holiday. So, are you the kind of person that completely has to clean your house from top to bottom before you go away? Are you someone that, researches the hell out of every single restaurant in the local area where you're going so that you know exactly where you're going to eat? Are you a planner versus a wing it? And they were asking their audience to come back to them with what their holiday habits were. And so this is before they were using our product. They had a sort of static email that did contain some lovely images, but they weren't user-generated images. And considering it was a campaign asking for user-generated content, they were sort of missing a trick there. And it had no on-open technology. So what we mean by on-open technology is that the content of the email renders when I open it, not when the marketer sends it. And so combining personalization and UGC, and obviously all of the big data pieces I just talked about with on-open, means you have an ultimately contextual email for every single individual that opens it. So it's extremely powerful. So we went to Teletext and we said, look, this is a great campaign. You should really be using our tool, Smart Content, and our Smart Insights to drive this. We'll go and source all of the people that are entering the competition and some others that are relevant, and we'll pull them into your email automatically through that coffee cup curation. And this is what it ended up looking like. So this should animate. So depending on when I opened it, I'd have the most recent image. It would show the time of when that piece of user-generated content had been created. So if I'd opened it at 11 o'clock on this Thursday morning and I saw a piece of content that had been created at 10:50, that feels like a really alive email, not something that's been sort of pulled together by a marketing department a week ago. So this is what we mean by real-time contextual marketing, and it's actually easier to do than kind of bulk marketing that relies very heavily on the human to create many different iterations of a campaign, for example. It was really successful for them. They saw a 2x increase in 24 hours in comparison to the rest of their campaign, and they've now rolled it out across all of their CRM programs. So it really works for them. They're able to also use big data to understand who needs to see what kind of image. So big data plus coffee cup curation is a really great output for them. So I'm not going to go through all of this slide because it's disgusting, but I do like one part of it, which is the circles on the right, which is content, context, and crowds. Every brand we come up to work with has a problem with one of these three things. They either can't source enough content because they have too many touch points and their audience is so massive, or they can't source the right content for that particular individual. They're not being able to understand in real time what the context of that individual is, which leads me to the bottom left of it, being able to understand in the moment. We talk about this idea of quantum personas, again back to my science, because in any moment, the kind of purchaser I am can change. I recently bought a new house. I'm going to be looking at many different products now than I was a week ago. And if you don't have the most up-to-date real-time data on me, you're not going to be able to market to me effectively based on that. So context is everything, and real-time data is the only thing that can fuel being able to respond in context. And crowds is what we all want. New customers, being able to find them. We found that customers that use the user-generated content I showed you in acquisition campaigns can get a 3x increase on what those campaigns normally run. And that's especially true when it's used in social advertising. So, as I said, the luxury automotive retailer we worked with did exactly that. They used user images of the cars rather than their brand images on social only, and they got this 3x return on those images. And that makes sense, right? Because you sit there scrolling through your phone and you're looking at your Facebook or Twitter or whatever your social addiction is of choice, and then if it's a brand image, it's going to look incongruous to that context. If it's a user image, it perhaps has more trust and it makes more sense being in that space. So that's why that works, and that's why crowds is something we help out our customers with as well. So what I usually say to people is, the brands that are in the room, you are James Bond. You are out in the field doing all the important stuff and having to make split-second decisions on what your next strategy is. We are Q. We are the guys in the basement. We've got a lot of clever guys. We literally have to lock some of them in the basement because of security things now. Do you have this in your organisations? We have one room that has no windows because we work with brands that have these international privacy laws. No one in the organisation can see their screens. That's just an aside. Anyway, we are like you in the basement. We are creating lots of very powerful toys that when you deploy them in the field, they make a real difference to your campaign. These are some of the brands that we work with. We actually have 1,700 customers globally. So we're a mid-sized player in this game, but that kind of means that we innovate quite quickly. So please come and talk to us about any of these things. We're going to be around all day. Christian, do you want to give us a wave in the corner? That guy over there. Charlotte, do you want to give us a wave? That lady there. And me, I mean, I'm really easy to miss, so do come and talk to me as well. And if you're worried about the future, I want to give you a bit of a piece of hope to end with, which is, this is Andromeda. You might think it looks like the Milky Way. It's because we don't actually have any pictures of the Milky Way because we're in the Milky Way. So if you ever see a picture of the Milky Way, it's actually probably Andromeda. We're on a collision course for Andromeda. So in 24 billion years, Andromeda and the Milky Way are going to look like the ones that I showed at the beginning, warring for that matter that's contained between them. So, you know, we're all going to die. And that's my cheery thought to end with.
We're actually hit by a meteorite before then.
Oh, yeah.